Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story. The dust tastes like old pennies today. Always does when the rain's coming, but it don't feel right. Feels heavy. Like the sky's pressing down on these old hills. My name's Caleb. Been living out here, on this scrap of Texas rock and scrub, longer than most folks can remember. Longer than I care to, some days. Got my sheep. 99 of them. That's all the company I need, most times. More reliable than people, sheep are. Quieter, too. I do my chores. Fix the fence where the wind knocked it loose. Check the water trough. The sheep watch me, heads down, chewing. They know the routine. Been the same for 30 years, since Martha, well, since it's just been me and the flock. I go into town maybe once a month, for flour, beans, coffee. Keep my hat low, say my piece quick, get back to the hills. Folks in Cedar Creek call me the hermit. Suits me fine. That night, the storm hit like a freight train. Rain hammered the tin roof so loud I thought it might cave in. Wind howled around the corners of the old farmhouse, sounding like lost souls. I sat by the stove, trying to read the Bible, but the words wouldn't stick. Something felt wrong. More than just the storm. Then I heard it. Faint, over the wind. A thin, desperate bleating. Not the usual nighttime fuss. This was sharp. Scared. It came from the barn. Dang it, I muttered, pulling on my oilskin coat. The barn door fought me, the wind trying to slam it shut. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp wool and hay. The flock was huddled together, restless. The noise was coming from the far corner, where Bessie, my best ewe, was down on her side, straining. Bessie never had trouble before. But this birth was hard. Real hard. Rain leaked through the old roof, dripping onto the straw. Lightning flashed, throwing jagged shadows. I knelt beside her, talking low, useless words of comfort. Easy, girl. Easy now. It went on for hours. Bessie panted, cried out. I worried she wouldn't make it. Finally, near dawn, when the storm was just grumbling away, she pushed out the lamb. It lay still for a terrible moment, slick and dark. Then it gave a weak cough, a tiny gasp, and started breathing. I breathed out too. Relief washed over me. But then I looked closer. In the gray light creeping through the barn door cracks, I saw it wasn't right. This lamb, it was black. Not dark brown, not gray. Pure, deep black, like spilled ink on snow. And it was small. Too small. Bessie nuzzled it, licking it clean. The little thing struggled to its shaky legs, wobbled, and looked up at me. That's when my blood turned cold. Its eyes. They weren't like any sheep eyes I'd ever seen. Not the usual flat, dumb brown. These were different. Bigger. Darker, somehow, even than its coat. And they held an intelligence. A knowing. Like they saw right through my skin, right into the tired old lump of muscle I call a heart. They looked human. I took a step back. What in the Lord's name? The lamb just blinked those strange, dark eyes. It didn't seem afraid. It just watched me. Bessie nudged it towards her milk, but it kept its gaze on me for a long moment before turning to feed. The 100th sheep. The thought popped into my head, unbidden. It felt heavy. Significant. Like crossing a line I never meant to cross. 99 was a good number. Manageable. Round. 100 felt, crowded. Especially with this one. I named it Onyx, for the black stone. Didn't feel right calling it just the Black Lamb. It deserved a name. Maybe that was my first mistake. Things started changing slow, then fast. At first, it was little things I could almost explain away. The flock stopped spreading out to graze like they used to. Instead, they'd bunch up tight, always with Onyx somewhere near the center. Not pushing him, not crowding him, just surrounding him. Like guards. Or worshippers. One afternoon, a week after Onyx was born, I walked out to the north pasture. The whole flock, all 99 others, were standing in a perfect circle. Dead silent. Heads down. And right in the center, small and black, stood Onyx. He wasn't doing anything. Just standing there. But the others were rigid, like statues, forming that ring around him. The sun beat down, but I felt a chill. "Hey!" I yelled, clapping my hands. "Get on, now. Graze." Nothing. Not a single sheep twitched. Not an ear flicked. They just stood, silent sentinels around the black lamb. Onyx turned his head slowly and looked at me with those unsettling eyes. Just looked. After a long minute, he gave a soft, almost imperceptible bleat. Like a sigh. And as one, the flock broke the circle and started grazing, as if nothing had happened. My skin crawled. That wasn't sheep behavior. Sheep follow the leader, sure. But this felt different. Organized. Obedient. To him. Then came the staring. I'd be in the kitchen, washing up, and feel eyes on me. I'd look out the window. There they'd be. Clustered together at the edge of the yard, maybe 20, 30 sheep. Just standing. Staring at the house. At me. Motionless. Silent. Only Onyx's small, dark form would be visible among them. Those eyes fixed on the window. It made the hair on my neck stand up. I'd shout, wave my arms. They wouldn't move until he did. He'd eventually turn away, or lower his head, and the flock would slowly drift back towards the pasture. Like puppets whose strings had been cut. The dreams started then. Bad dreams. Not like any I'd had before. Vivid, smelly. Terrifying. I'd be standing in my fields, but the land was wrong. Barren. Scorched. Blackened symbols, like twisted, angry writing, were burned deep into the earth itself. Circles within circles, jagged lines, hooks that looked like claws. They pulsed with a sickly, greenish light. The air hummed, thick with the smell of ozone and something else, something old and rotten, like damp earth from a deep, forgotten grave. And I'd hear voices. Whispering, chanting. Not English. Not Spanish. Something guttural, ancient, full of hard sounds and hisses. It came from all around, carried on a wind that wasn't there. It felt like it was coming from under me. From the land itself. The whispers would coil around my mind, cold and slimy, promising things I didn't understand but filled me with dread. I'd wake up gasping, the sheets soaked with sweat, those symbols burned onto the inside of my eyelids, the whispers echoing in the silence of the pre-dawn house. Sometimes, lying awake in the dark, heart pounding, I'd swear I could still hear the whispers. Faint, very faint, drifting up from the direction of the barn. Was it the wind? Rats? Or something else? I stopped sleeping much. Onyx grew fast. Too fast. He was still small compared to the older sheep, but sturdy. And those eyes, they got wiser. More knowing. He watched me constantly. Not like the other sheep watched for feed or water. He watched like he was studying me. Like he knew my thoughts. Then came the first warning. It was a Tuesday. Market day in Cedar Creek. I needed nails and salt. Hitched up the old truck. As I walked past the corral towards the truck, Onyx was there, near the fence. The flock was clustered behind him, unnaturally still again. He didn't take his eyes off me. I reached for the truck door handle. Onyx let out a sound. Not a bleat. Not a cry. A sharp, guttural grunt. Like a warning cough. It stopped me cold. He stamped his small, black hoof on the ground. Once. Twice. Hard. Then he stared at me, those dark eyes boring into mine. The message was clear as day, don't go. It was ridiculous. A sheep telling me what to do. I shook my head, angry at myself for even hesitating. Quiet, you, I muttered, and climbed into the truck. The engine sputtered to life. I put it in gear. As I started rolling down the drive, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Onyx was standing rigid at the fence, the flock a dark mass behind him. All staring after the truck. I felt a prickle of unease, but I pushed it down. Foolishness. I got about 5 miles down the road toward Cedar Creek when I saw the smoke. A thick, black column rising into the sky ahead, right near the turnoff to town. Then the flashing lights. Fire trucks. Ambulances. Police cars blocking the road. I pulled over. Hank Miller, who runs the feed store, was standing by his truck, face pale. "Caleb," he said, his voice shaky. "Terrible thing. Just terrible." "What happened, Hank?" "Gas leak," Hank said, wiping his brow. "Over at the diner. Blew up just after breakfast rush. Whole front is gone. They say Maud Henderson was inside. And the Peterson boy, Billy, just delivering eggs." His voice trailed off. "Ain't pulled anyone else out yet." My blood turned to ice. Maud ran the diner. Billy was a good kid. The timing, if I hadn't stopped to argue with myself over a sheep's warning. I'd have been pulling up right outside that diner just as it blew. I never got my nails or salt. I turned the truck around and drove home, hands trembling on the wheel. Onyx was waiting by the gate as I pulled in. He didn't look smug. He just looked at me. Those deep, knowing eyes seemed to say, "I told you so." That was the crack in the dam. Fear, real fear, settled deep in my bones. This wasn't just a strange lamb. Something was very, very wrong. The whispers from the barn seemed louder at night. The flock's staring sessions became more frequent, lasting longer. They started gathering closer to the house, sometimes right up against the porch, a silent, woolly wall staring at the windows. I started keeping the curtains drawn tight. Then the neighbors came. First was Elmer Higgins. Elmer's place is about 3 miles west. We ain't exactly friends, but we're neighborly. Swap tools, help out if a fence blows down. He showed up one afternoon in his beat-up Ford. Unannounced. That wasn't like Elmer. "Caleb," he called out, getting out of his truck. He looked distracted. His eyes kept darting past me, towards the pasture where the flock was grazing. "Just passing by. Heard you might have, seen a strange bird. Big black one." I frowned. "Ain't seen no strange birds, Elmer. You all right?" "Fine, fine," he mumbled, not looking at me. He was staring intently at the flock. "Heard tell, well, never mind. Nice-looking sheep you got there. That one, the black one." He started walking towards the pasture fence, almost in a trance. "Real unusual color. Elmer?" I called, following him. The flock had stopped grazing. They were turning, forming their usual loose circle. Onyx was in the middle. He lifted his head and looked straight at Elmer. Those dark eyes seemed to glow faintly for a second. Elmer stopped dead. He stared at Onyx. A slow, dreamy smile spread across his face. "Well, look at you. He breathed. Ain't you something? Elmer, you best come on up to the house, I said, grabbing his arm. His skin felt cold. He didn't resist, but his eyes never left Onyx. He let me lead him back to his truck. Beautiful. He whispered, starting the engine. Just beautiful. He drove off slowly, still looking back towards the pasture. I never saw Elmer Higgins again. His wife reported him missing 2 days later. Said he went out looking for a stray calf and never came back. They found his truck parked near a dry creek bed, miles from where any calf would be. No sign of Elmer. 2 days after that, it was Sarah Jenkins. Sarah's husband died years back. She lived alone, kept bees. She showed up at my gate, looking flustered. Caleb. Oh, Caleb, thank goodness. My cat, Mittens, she ran off this way. Have you seen her? A little gray tabby. Sarah didn't even like sheep. But her eyes, like Elmer's, were drawn past me, towards the barn. Onyx was outside, near the water trough. The flock was gathered loosely nearby. Ain't seen no cat, Sarah, I said, stepping out, trying to block her view. You should head back. Storm might be coming later. Oh, but. She started, then her gaze fixed on Onyx. Her eyes widened. Oh my. She pushed past me, walking towards the black lamb. What a peculiar little creature. Sarah, no. I grabbed her shoulder. She felt thin, brittle. Onyx turned his head. Looked at her. That same strange, compelling intensity radiated from him. Sarah froze. A look of wonder, almost ecstasy, washed over her face. It's calling me. She whispered, her voice thin and distant. Sarah, listen to me. I shook her gently. Get back in your car. She turned her head slowly towards me. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. I have to go, she said calmly. He needs me. She pulled away from my grip with surprising strength and walked, not towards her car, but towards the barn. The flock parted silently as she approached Onyx. She knelt before him in the dust. Onyx stepped forward and nudged her hand with his nose. Sarah smiled, a vacant, blissful smile. Then she stood up and walked into the barn. The flock closed ranks behind her. I ran after her. Sarah. Come out of there. The barn was dim. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light. Sarah was standing in the middle of the aisle, facing the back wall. Onyx was beside her. Sarah. I called, my voice echoing. She didn't turn. Didn't move. Onyx looked at me. Then he gave a soft grunt, like the one he'd given me the day of the explosion. Sarah suddenly turned and walked towards the darkest corner of the barn, behind the old hay bales. A corner stacked with junk I hadn't moved in years. She pushed aside an old tarp and vanished. Just stepped into the shadow and disappeared. I rushed over. There was nothing there. Just the rough wooden wall of the barn. I pushed against it. Solid. I tore at the junk, broken buckets, rusty tools. Nothing. No hole, no trapdoor. Sarah Jenkins was gone. Vanished into thin air. Onyx watched me search, those dark eyes unreadable. Panic seized me. Pure, cold terror. This was beyond strange. This was evil. I packed a bag that night. Just essentials. I couldn't stay. I'd drive to the sheriff in the morning, tell him everything. Let him think I was crazy. Anything was better than this. I must have dozed off at the kitchen table, head on my arms. The dream came again. Stronger. The scorched symbols blazed green against the black earth. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were chants. Loud, insistent, guttural roars coming from deep below. They shook the ground. I saw figures, shadowy, hunched things, dancing around a great stone slab slick with dark liquid. And above it all, burning brighter than the symbols, were two dark, intelligent eyes. I woke with a jolt, gasping. The whispers weren't just in the dream. They vibrated through the floorboards. Coming from the barn. Low, rhythmic, chanting. I grabbed my old hunting rifle. Didn't know what I'd shoot, but it felt better than nothing. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I crept out of the house, the cold night air biting my face. The moon was full, casting long, sharp shadows. The barn door stood slightly ajar. The chanting was clearer now. A deep, monotonous drone that seemed to come from beneath the barn itself. I pushed the door open wider. The barn was empty. The sheep weren't in their pens. The chanting pulsed up through the packed earth floor. It seemed strongest near the back corner, where Sarah had disappeared. Driven by a terror beyond reason, I grabbed a shovel leaning against the wall. I started digging. Right where Sarah had disappeared. The earth was hard, compacted. But the chanting seemed to urge me on, vibrating through the shovel handle into my bones. I dug like a man possessed. Sweat poured down my face, stinging my eyes. My old muscles screamed. Deeper and deeper. The chanting grew louder, more insistent. Finally, the shovel hit something hard. Not rock. Wood. I cleared the dirt frantically. It was a trapdoor. Old, thick, worm-eaten oak, bound with rusted iron bands. It looked ancient. There was a heavy iron ring for a handle. The chanting was deafening now, seeming to come from right beneath the door. It filled my head, threatening to split it open. With a strength I didn't know I had, fueled by terror and rage, I gripped the iron ring and heaved. The door groaned, protesting, then lifted with a shower of dirt and splinters. A wave of cold, damp, impossibly ancient air washed over me. It smelled of wet stone, decay, and something metallic. Blood. Stairs, roughly carved from the bedrock, led down into utter blackness. The chanting boomed up from the void. I fumbled for the kerosene lantern I kept on a hook. My hands shook so badly I could barely light it. The yellow flame flickered, casting crazy, jumping shadows. I pointed the rifle ahead of me, though it felt like a toy against the dread emanating from that hole. Step by trembling step, I descended into the earth. The stairs went down maybe 20 feet. Then they opened into a chamber. My lantern light pushed back the darkness, revealing horrors. It was a cave, maybe natural, maybe carved, long ago. The walls were covered in carvings. The same symbols from my dreams, the twisted circles, the claw hooks, the jagged lines, etched deep into the rock. They seemed to writhe in the flickering light. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone slab. An altar. Dark stains, old and thick, covered its surface and pooled on the floor beneath it. Dried blood. A lot of it. Around the altar were things. Bones. Animal bones, mostly sheep skulls, piled high. But some looked different. Larger. Thicker. Human. My stomach lurched. Hanging from the low ceiling were crude fetishes made of feathers, fur, and twisted twigs. The place reeked of death and dark magic. This was the source. The heart of the whispering. The land's dark past laid bare. Early settlers. Outlaws. Something older. Something that had slept beneath my farm, beneath my feet, for God knows how long. And Onyx, he wasn't just a strange lamb. He was a vessel. A door. The 100th sheep. The one that tipped the balance. The spirit, the thing they worshipped down here, it had woken up. It had used Onyx to reach out. To gather the flock, to call the neighbors, to feed. To prepare. The chanting had stopped the moment I stepped into the chamber. The silence was worse. Thick, heavy, expectant. I felt unseen eyes watching me from the shadows beyond the lantern light. I backed up, stumbling on the stairs, desperate to get out, to seal that terrible door. As I scrambled back into the barn, slamming the trapdoor shut, kicking dirt over it, I knew. Onyx had to go. Far away. Immediately. The next morning, I was a wreck. Shaking, hollow-eyed. But I had a plan. A desperate one. I remembered the flyer tacked up in the Cedar Creek post office weeks ago. Mendoza's Marvelous Menagerie and Circus. Passing through, looking for unique attractions. I hitched the truck. I didn't look at the flock, clustered silently by the barn, watching me. Onyx stood slightly apart, those dark eyes fixed on me. Knowing. I drove into Cedar Creek like the devil himself was chasing me. Found the circus setting up on the fairgrounds outside town. Tents, cages, the smell of sawdust and animals. I found Rudy Mendoza, the owner. A big man with a waxed mustache and shrewd eyes. I got straight to the point. Got a sheep. Black lamb. Pure black. Ain't like any other. Mendoza raised an eyebrow. A black sheep? That ain't so unusual, old-timer. This one is, I insisted, my voice rough. Got eyes, different. Smart. Real smart. People find him fascinating. Can't look away. I didn't tell him about Elmer or Sarah. He'd think I was mad. Make a good attraction. The devil's lamb or something. Mendoza chuckled. All right. Show me this wonder sheep. We drove back to the farm in his fancy car. The flock was still near the barn. Onyx stood out like a hole in the world. Mendoza got out, looked, and his amused expression vanished. He stared at Onyx. Onyx stared back. Well, I'll be. Mendoza breathed. He walked closer. Onyx didn't move. Just watched. Those eyes, never seen anything like it. Looks like he's thinking deep thoughts. He laughed, but it sounded forced. All right, old-timer. You got a deal. $50. I didn't care about the money. Done. Take him. Now. Mendoza whistled. Two of his men came with a small crate. Onyx didn't resist as they gently herded him towards it. He went quietly. Too quietly. He didn't take his eyes off me. As they lifted the crate into the back of Mendoza's truck, those dark eyes held mine. There was no anger. No fear. Just that deep, ancient knowing. And something else, a hint of amusement. Like this was all part of a game I didn't understand. The truck started up. Mendoza tipped his hat. Pleasure doing business. They drove off down the dusty track, the crate holding the black lamb bouncing in the back that I slumped against the porch post, weak with relief. It was over. The evil was gone. Sold to a traveling circus. Far away. I could breathe again. I watched the truck disappear over the rise, a heavy weight lifting from my chest. The sun felt warm on my face for the first time in weeks, then I heard it. A soft sound behind me that I turned. One of my sheep, old Daisy, was walking slowly, purposefully, towards the gate. Towards the road where the circus truck had vanished. Daisy? I called, confused. Get back here. Daisy didn't stop. She reached the gate, nosed it open, it wasn't latched properly, and stepped out onto the track. She started walking down the road, following the direction of the truck. My blood froze. Daisy! No! Before I could move, another sheep moved. Then another. Betsy. Then Samson. Then a group of 5. They weren't running. They walked calmly, steadily, in single file. Out the gate Daisy had opened. Onto the road. Turning left. Following the dust cloud left by the circus truck, panic, colder and sharper than before, sliced through me. I tried to block the gate, but they just flowed around me, unperturbed. Their eyes were fixed ahead, on the horizon where the truck had gone. Empty. Blank. Obedient that I looked back at the barn. My flock. My 99 sheep. They were all moving now. Every single one. Leaving the pasture, walking with eerie calm through the gate, joining the line on the road. A silent parade of wool and hooves, stretching down the dusty track, disappearing into the distance. Following Onyx that I stood there, alone in the sudden, terrible silence of my empty farm. The wind sighed through the dry grass. The house loomed behind me, big and empty. The barn door creaked on its hinges. Beneath it, beneath the dirt I'd kicked over the trapdoor, I thought I heard it. Just for a second. The faintest echo of a satisfied whisper. I watched the last of my sheep, old Tom with the crooked horn, disappear over the rise. Gone. All gone. Following the black lamb. Following the thing that had slept under my land, the silence pressed in, heavy and final. I was truly alone now. And I knew, with a certainty that settled into my bones like the cold of that underground chamber, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The circus was heading east. Towards towns. Towards cities. Towards people, and the 100th sheep was leading the way.